I'm going to take a moment to talk about Highland dress. Now, technically, the outfit I have is a mishmash of SCA period and SCA non-period, that is post-period attire. Kilts did not come into existence until about 1550. They evolved from the brat or mantle at that point in time when the blanket thrown around the body was belted in the middle to hold it in place. That's called a belted plaid, and it was the precursor to the kilt. The kilt I wear technically was an invention of the factories because Scots workers were getting killed in the gears when their great kilts were being caught in those gears. Now, this vest or waistcoat in Scotland would be called a petion. It's basically the same thing that the English would call a jerkin. I didn't lace up the front because I didn't feel like lacing it up. But for fitted purposes, garments were laced, otherwise they had to be very loose and bulky. The top I am wearing is a variation of the lane. The lane is a Celtic tunic that started way back before the Vikings. And one way or the other continued into existence, eventually becoming the undershirt to whatever the Scots were wearing. Now, as you can see, I have big, large sleeves that are absolutely useless for performing manual labor. Sleeves like this were a statement. I am of the noble class. I don't do manual labor. If you were of a working class person, your sleeves would probably be closer tied up, but otherwise, very likely, more or less the same. Now, I do have a kilt build. It is somewhat modern compared to SCA period. SCA period, a lot of times you'll find the belt that is with just a circular thing and then looped around and tied. That's because early archaeological finds didn't find the pins that a modern belt buckle has. But as more and more artifacts were dug up, researchers discovered that the problem was that the pins were the first thing lost on the buckle, and that the buckles were used over and over and over and over again until that pin was lost. So it is presumed now that a pinned belt buckle goes back far older than we once thought. Now, this, which the Scots call a sporran, is nothing more than the same waist pouches that you see on virtually every SCA garb. Now, mine is on a separate chain, but you can find sporrans that ride off the belt. They've served the exact same purpose as any other pouch. They are the individual's pocket. Now, a lot of SCA pouches are plain. This one is decorated, and you might think that doesn't make sense. But the truth is, as more and more surviving leather goods were discovered, we discovered that those leather goods were decorated, sometimes with metal brads like this, and sometimes by other means. But the plain leather didn't necessarily equal what was used in period. Now, if I backed up and if you looked at my footwear, you would see that I'm wearing modern gillies. Now, the Scottish gilly had holes in them, and the holes in them were there to drain the water when a Scotsman walked through muck or through a river. In modern gillies, the holes are style rather than functional. They don't actually go through all the layers. But that's that. I do wear kilt hose. That's not necessarily what was worn in period, but I have not yet traced down what is worn in period. I'm inclined to suspect something similar to the Viking leg wrap, but I don't know. Now, I do carry a stocking dirk or black dagger in my stocking. In period, you carried your utensils with you. What you needed to eat, what you needed to cut meat, and so forth. So a typical Scotsman, like most period people during the period, would have probably carried 1 to 3 knives. Now the last thing I'll talk about is my bonnet. There are a variety of bonnets that Scotsmen might have worn. This one is wool. It was good basically from September through April, maybe May. It's warm, it's comfortable. In the summer, there is some evidence the Scots wore straw hats. I can't support that with my own research, but I do periodically wear straw hats in the context of the SCA at a summer event. If you see me at an event, feel free to ask me questions about Scottish garb, and I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you.